And we're live. Episode 4, Tech 4-3. My name is Mark. We have Eddie. Say hi, Eddie.
Hello.
And Brian. Say hi, Brian, with a new microphone.
Hello. New microphone. I sound a lot better.
Sounds so much better.
I don't sound like I have a head cold constantly. And I'm also speaking through a tunnel.
There you go. It's fine. We'll figure it out. Thanks for joining. Hopefully everybody's had a good couple weeks. Like I think our title kind of throws out there a little bit on the slow end for the mobile side of things. We have a couple extra things to talk about on top of the mobile stuff. But either way, I'm sure there's enough BS between the three of us and Eddie trying to explain what the hell he's talking about for us to be able to work through a little bit of time and share some opinions. So a couple things, I think, just to start off. I mean, mobile-wise, this week, based on the title of our episode, what the hell, Google, basically was it if you can speak to this, Eddie, what did I hear? Some person in Czechoslovakia got a hold of these Pixel 3 XLs or something, and they're like unboxing them on the internet to like a month before any of the announcements or anything like that. Something insane.
This has got to be the biggest like cell phone leak or leak of anything that I've ever seen at least in recent memory. It's just like, it's almost comical. Like there's so many different leaks now that almost is like Google's greatest troll, and they're going to come up on stage and release a completely different looking device. And they just made like 30 of something and threw them out there and let people go crazy with them and show them off. And then they're going to get up on stage and say, yeah, we got you guys. You guys are idiots. And then
it's like intense. Like it was one a week for like 3 weeks of like somebody left it in a cab or whatever. Somebody left, was on a train or something, and they were holding it, and they're like, I think they're supposed to have cases on them in the wild when they're testing these things. So it's like people for a while, I think Eddie's talking about like, is Google doing this themselves just to kind of get the hype, because the Pixel 3 XL is kind of fluttering a little bit with the notch stuff and everything else. So are they trying to hype themselves, or do you think this just got away from them?
I can't imagine. I mean, that's crazy. If it is, it's crazy. Like I can see, on a subway or somebody's, snapping a really tough pic, but there's a legit full unboxing of like all of the materials, the pamphlets, everything. It's almost like it's planted that way. Or it's, strategic as far as, think Apple, the Apple iPhone and the Pixel have been launching pretty close to one another as of in recent years. So you think, well, normally the news is flooded with Apple leaks. And when I look at feeds this year, I don't.
They did a really good job of stopping that. There was nothing until this week.
A little bit, but is that hurting against them? Because now it's like all this Pixel buzz. I've got friends and family members that have iPhones now that are asking about it just because it keeps getting in their ear. Like there's just all these crazy leaks, and is this a legit leak? Like, or did Google make like 20 fake junk phones? I mean, the packaging can be real. Like they show the box, which is fine, but the box doesn't have a indicator of what the phone looks like. Like if you look at an Apple box, there's in some way, shape, or form, there's a picture of the device. The boxes are just plain Google boxes. So I really kind of hope it is like a troll and they show something that's like epic, because
they found like the 20 guys out there that are like, these guys will definitely leave this somewhere. You know what I mean? Like this guy leaves his coffee cup in the kitchen every day. We know he's going to leave his phone behind on a cab at some point.
They found the mark at Google. They were like, this dude is going to screw this shit up. It's going to be
so
great.
if it is an illegitimate leak, I guess, where they did send out 20 or 30 of these fake phones and release them to the Czechs and let the Czechs have them, yeah, that'd be great. But I mean, everything that we're seeing, it looks like, either they're doing it for the pre-advertising. So, I mean, think about it. They don't have to pay for advertising. We're already talking about it. I mean, Droid Life had it on earlier this week, right? That's whenever I put that into we should probably talk about this thing, so that's free advertising for them. They don't have to do any work at this point to talk about it.
They have to want it. There's no takedowns, no takedown notices on websites. I mean, it's on YouTube. So if there was one place they could 100% control you not seeing it, it's YouTube. And the fact that it's all over YouTube, you know, I mean, Google can shut down algorithm. Like you can show 5 seconds of a Disney clip, and within seconds, Google's got you and shut you down because of copyright infringement. There is no way they couldn't shut down these leaks from, you know, people unboxing, like the full unboxing. So that leads me to believe that they, to some degree, want it to happen.
They went. I mean, I had heard like there was screenshots of forums where you could purchase these that were like $2,000, like from the black market of Czechoslovakia.
So that's probably what they're going to price for anyway. So.
Yeah, Daddy.
There was a box of them lost, and that's lost, so to speak. There's, I don't know. I still am holding hope out that there's just they left the box of dummy units. They just sent them somewhere and said, hey, you know, these are fake. We want you to unbox them. Will you do this for us, and you'll get a ton of views on YouTube and make a crap ton of money, because it's like it's a reciprocating relationship that we're going to have. Like you show these fake units, and we'll make sure that you get all the advertisers and you make all the money from it. And it's just crazy to me. I have a hard time believing that how this even happened. There's just so many leaks that have come out. It's like unfathomable. Like, I can't understand how that happened.
Do you have any of those, Brian, like to be able to see what actually came up? I know that they were like a little bit all over the place. Like we saw the Pixel 3 XL the last couple weeks in a row. Like we saw just the one picture of like the clandestine photo from the other side of the trolley, and then we saw a full one of the unboxing. Like Eddie said, somebody got a hold of one and like unboxed it without like turning it on, because from what I understand, if it would have connected to Wi-Fi, Google would have found them, the whole spiel. So they did the unboxing, and this week I think was the one where they left it in the taxi, and then the guy took a bunch of pictures of it and then gave it back to the owner.
Which is also,
so let me pull up the
do you know that would know exactly what they had. So like you think about the average Joe that's around, like if I went and I dropped a Pixel 3 XL at a Denny's, how many people, honestly, do you think they're going to say, oh, someone left their phone?
The average person is like 83 years old at Denny's. That's not going to like
would snap. Like, and this taxi driver took a bunch of pictures, and not only did they take pictures, they covered up the identifying marks on the pictures. Like, so you've got a random taxi driver that just so happens to be technologically savvy enough to know not only what phone they have, but to cover up the identifying marks while they take pictures so they can send it to the media outlets. That's tough for me to swallow.
Right. And if you, I mean, that 3XL was almost a month ago at this point, right? That originally leaked. So it's been a long time. So like these are the photos out of the unboxing. So it has everything that we expected anyway. You know, so we already kind of knew what we were getting, you know, full edge-to-edge display, the notch with the grumpy face in it, you know, like there's your Pixel Bud-esque USB-C headphones, your charger, your dongle, your other dongle, you know, everything that you need all in one. And then Droid Life earlier this week, I want to say, or late last week. Yeah, earlier this week. So your regular 3 leaked finally. But yeah, I mean, like Eddie said, you know, they had to have known what they were looking at, because that looks a lot like just a regular Pixel, you know, but it's subtle enough that if you know what you're looking for and you know what you're looking at, there it is.
Right.
You know, it looks a lot like the regular Pixel, almost like the 2, given the two-tone back, which I didn't think they were doing based on what we had heard previously. So, I mean, maybe that's really the only surprise, is the two-tone as opposed to solid glass.
They did a coating over glass, from what I thought.
Red material over glass, like a plastic mix that they spray over top of so that it still can wirelessly charge. Because the
That way
Pixel
you
Dock,
don't drop your $2,000 phone from Czechoslovakia.
and there's a video out there of someone showing that it can wirelessly charge, and then shortly after that, the Pixel Dock leaked, which is the Pixel charging.
Yeah, it just looks like a little round half circle that you kind of just set on.
Or the net. So the way back when the Palm Pre had that, where it was just like a really strong magnet and it just stuck on this like orb looking thing, and then years later the Nexus 4 did that, and its only problem was if you had the volume turned all the way up and you talked to someone with a lower voice, the vibrations would sometimes make the Nexus 4 kind of slide around. But I'm assuming they're going to have that fixed for this, because the Nexus 4 was a completely glass back. After the Nexus 4, they stopped doing glass backs. It went to plastic and metal.
I mean, we didn't see a ton of the. I mean, we know about the Nexus devices. I mean, they were on a lot of second tier carriers as far as like people that used it, because a lot of them were GSM capable. Like, I don't think the 4 worked on anything besides like the second tier stuff, and the 5 before before the 6P and the 5 that came out together. It's just like I wanted to, it's the same as the Note 9 conversation when we're like, we know exactly what the hell they're going to bring out onto stage. And Eddie said last episode, he was like, they physically said on stage, like, it's hard to come up with something brand new every time we step on stage. Totally understandable. I mean, it is what it is. Why hold a keynote for Google or for Apple at this point? Because they've only leaked their own stuff this year, the one picture that I saw, but Google stuff's out of control. Like, this is more so than I think we've seen ever. Well, in the 3 years of Pixel phones.
Yeah, normally it's reduced to just a couple like photos here and there. Like, you think back to Moto X days, like you would just see like little spy shots. They were super blurry. They were like garbage pictures that you could barely tell, but it got you excited. Like, this is a legit 4K YouTube video that's still up, that has that the entire phone unboxed on it, which is one thing. And then you add that with all the extra little leaks. It just seems so with purpose. I don't know what that, my deep down inside, I want that purpose to be, to troll us and it to be a different phone without a big giant notch.
Not saying it. Not saying it. No.
Gonna be, that's not gonna be, but I will hold out and I will continue to believe until October 9th.
No, you're gonna see that phone on stage and we're gonna be like, it has a giant notch, and they're gonna show the Pixel 3. It's gonna be a Pixel 2 XL in a mini form, and they're going to have Note 9 syndrome where you're just going to be like, it's here. You can take a picture from a shelf. Well, you can't take a picture from a shelf with this one, but it's the world we live in, I guess, at this point, I would imagine. The world that we live in with Czechoslovakia. But like Eddie said, usually every year was October 4th from what we've had in previous years. They changed it to the 9th this year, which I think is confirmed. But I mean, it just is what it is. Like, what the hell ? Means is it you guys, or is it just because they have way too much control over what they're doing at this point for it to be like a total like breach of security. I have nothing else for the Pixel stuff. We've literally seen what they are. We know what they're going to look like, minus the Phantom phone that you see conversated about online, which I don't think is a real thing with the Pixel Ultra. I don't know that that's real, at least this year. I also did see, as sad as it's going to make Brian, that there is not going to be a Pixel Watch this year. He shed one tear when I told him that on his.
I think I sent 3 crying emojis.
One red tear down his very red face. And he was super sad. But I did watch a couple different videos because the Galaxy Watch is a thing now. I kind of wanted to get Eddie's opinion on it because from what I've seen, Most people are just saying if you have a Gear S3, there's not a big reason to upgrade. So I don't know if you've seen anything about it, Eddie, or have an opinion on what you're looking at with this versus, because I know you have a Gear S3. So what your opinion is on this one?
It's just a slightly different. Physically, it's different just a little bit, but like software wise, it's the same. The Gear S3 updated, very similar to Apple. The Series 2 and Series 3. You can compare that to the Gear S2 versus the Gear S3 and the Galaxy Watch. Like the Series 1 Apple Watch was, just kind of put out, and it didn't have the oomph behind it to really, get the performance that they wanted. And then the Series 2 came out with all the performance, and then the Series 3, shortly after that. Something very similar here. The S2 was like their Series 1. And after the battery life was kind of crappy, like you could see what they wanted to do, they just didn't have the tech to do it. And then the S3 was that tech. And so much like the Series 2 and Series 3 are very similar, so are the Galaxy Watch and the Gear S3. Like it's just physically they look a little different. The design is a little different on them. But
I like the look of it. I mean, did they change up? Was the S3 46 millimeter and a 42 millimeter?
The S3 was about the size of the smaller of the Galaxy Watches.
Okay. I thought there was a bigger jump. Based on what you're saying, the S3, I think, took a hike in price because of that being the watch that they wanted to promote and do the things that they wanted to do. So that makes sense. I a ton of people that like the Gear S3 for a lot of reasons. For you, I know that it was a big deal for mobile payment. Using mobile payment a lot and hacking McDonald's, if we've told that story once or twice before. But that's not a real thing. He didn't do that. But from what I understand, MST, or the technology to use your Samsung Pay at like any terminal, is not in this watch like it was in the Gear S3.
That I don't know. I see the Samsung Pay logo on the box.
To me, I thought like I'm sure they could use it kind of like Android Pay was, where you could use it at certain terminals. But when I had the Note Fireball, Note 7, like that thing, because of the Samsung Pay and those services and that technology, it literally worked at any terminal, whether it was the tap to pay or whatever. Like it worked anywhere, so I didn't have to worry about carrying my card with me or having to go back to the car for whatever. This seems to be the bigger difference between not being able to use any terminal and being able to use just like the tap to pay terminals.
I don't know the answer to that one. I didn't. I assumed it was, when I see the Samsung Pay logo, I assume that is everywhere, because that's how it's initially advertised. Like if they took away functionality, that would be a game changer the opposite way for me. As far as I'm concerned, that is what that watch has. The software navigation over Wear OS was a little better, and the MST payments. But now that Wear OS has updated to the next version, the software is much, much better. So at this point, it's that pay anywhere feature that would draw me to the watch. And if it doesn't happen,
yeah, I would direct, and if we can get links into the description, we'll do something for Droid Life based on those pictures. They did a really good job of that. But Android Authority, their review, I think, is what I saw, and if we can link that after the fact here to maybe take a look at and see. They had mentioned that MST technology was the differentiator between the 3 and the regular Galaxy Watch. So when I saw that, I was like, well, this is going to be kind of a situation going backwards from what they've been releasing to this point. So, but because you said it, Wear OS on watches, I mean, is that even a conversation between, because Samsung has name recognition with their watches and their products, Wear OS on everything else, is that even worth looking at this point? Plus the new software.
I like the new software is awesome. The Wear OS advantage is that I can't go to a jewelry store and look and see a Samsung watch. But now I've gone to 3 different jewelry stores in the last maybe 10 days, and all 3 had a dedicated case, an entire case for smartwatches that had, and they were all Android Wear.
And Android Wear and Wear OS, if we're being clear, is Google's version of a watch operating system, and ties in what Samsung uses. So that we're just kind of speaking over the differences here. But what do you see different in the new Wear OS update that would make it even worth looking at this point? Because people have written it off.
Navigation, like the way that you get around it, it's no longer like weird. The watch now, when you make a swipe or you make a gesture, it doesn't do what you'd expect it to do. So
intuitive is the word, I guess.
Yeah, like you swipe left or right, you expect it to operate like your phone does, and it changes the watch face, which is like something that typically holding in does. Like the universal cell phone way to pull up something or to get into wallpapers or settings is to hold down on it. And that's not what you get here. Now that's changed. So it actually reminds me a little bit of how Tizen does it. It's like an odd mix of Tizen and the way that the Wear OS used to be when it was Android Wear. Like when the Moto 360 came out, it's very, very similar. The graphics have changed. They're a lot brighter. They're not quite so. It's almost like they took too much away. There's like a bunch of empty space. Like you just see a couple words that gives you your notification, and then it's this ugly color that represents whatever. Like in Hangouts, they'll get this like really brownish green, gross color that pops up whenever you're using, and that's all changed now. It's very clean, futuristic looking. They did a really nice job with the update, and the great thing is that almost every watch is getting it. There's only like four old watches on the list that are not getting it, and the 3 launch watches, which were the Moto 360, the Gear Live, and the LG G Watch, and then the Sony. There was the Sony one that came out, shortly after that. But everything else is slated to get that update, which is a pretty big deal. Something's coming. There's a Qualcomm announcement on the 10th. Which is, a little over a week from now. That is where they're showing off their new Wear processor, which is supposed to have this crazy battery life, which also coincidentally might be what's in the the Galaxy Watch, based on the fact that how incredible the battery is. Qualcomm is saying this chip is going to last 3, 4, 5 days. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was a whole slew of watches, and then everybody finds out that it is the new Qualcomm chip in the Samsung.
That's what I seem to hear. Does the Moto 360 second gen get that update?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one that's floating around in my house somewhere.
First gen doesn't get it, but the second
OG one floating around in my house.
Well, that's what they're doing at this point. They're just not. Yeah, the old watches. The first one was rough. The second one gave me new life. Like I have a tough time without having a smartwatch of some sort. It's all notification based. So if you're looking for an endorsement for a smartwatch, you'll find it from me based on the fact that my phone's never not on vibrate. So I'm getting all of my notifications without having to hear anything at any point, or my phone be super close to me, or whatever else it may be at work. Everything else, if I step away from the desk, it's still, I can control the music, which is a big deal for me. Things like that. So whatever makes it easier to use, whatever makes it last a little longer. So I'm not, if I get through halfway through the day and the watch dies, like it's like the world is over in my sad little cube of a life that I have. So Ring endorsement for anything that's going to add features. I wish I could use that I could use Apple Pay, I suppose. I don't really mess a ton with it, but I never set it up on the watch. So that's on me. Whatever. But anyways, in that vein, there's been leaks on the Apple front as well. I mean, we just saw a leak of the phones, the new ones, at least 2 of them on top of each other. I think Brian will probably find them here sooner or later. and the watch, the Series 4 watch, which looks to be a similar form factor, maybe a little bit thinner, less bezel, so more of a wider display, which I think was welcomed. I mean, I always was a fan of a larger display on a phone and a watch, and I don't have the biggest wrists in the world either. The more information I can fit on something like that, the better. But I mean, like Eddie said, years going, Apple was the one having all the leaks happening with their devices and their products, and now we have the Pixels and Google stuff that's literally released without being released. So this is exciting. At least we get to see some of the new stuff. I think Brian had mentioned when he saw the invites, the press invites, that it had the gather around with the gold logo. So we're expecting a gold phone or gold colorway. Some refreshes, obviously, to the phones, Macs, new iPads, the new watch. I don't know if you've had a chance, Brian, to pull any of that up, but
yeah, I was pulling that up. So this is off of CNET, so pretty reliable. But they pulled their source from 9 to 5 Mac. It's also been pretty reliable as well. So the leaks were against I guess they're going to call it the 10S, which would make sense given how they normally, stage their phones. So I'm assuming what we're looking at is
the name's going to be a awful mess.
Right, the X's. That's going to be horrible.
It drives me crazy when people say iPhone X now. Like if they're like the XS or the X's, I'll just go banana. I'll just quit.
Okay, so
or if heaven forbid someone says IXS.
Let me explain this. So, Edward, it's serious. I actually use that term. We know that that phone, that Apple markets this phone for the everyman, for the ease of use, for everything that they market it for. Do you expect them to care when they go in and buy a phone and they buy an iPhone? Do they say, I want this iPhone? They say, I want the new iPhone. Regardless of the name, that's almost not important besides this conversation or the conversation online. How many times have you seen someone come into a store and say, which iPhone do you want? There's like 4 at this point. I want the new one. There's not even a 10.
Well, there's 3 of those, so
yeah.
That's what it drives me crazy, because that indicates that they don't even know why they want it, and that just drives me insane.
But it doesn't matter because they're buying it, and that's what Apple wants. So Apple doesn't care whether they call it the X or the 10, and that probably bothers you too. But
it bothers me, Mark.
I just don't. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't think I've ever called it the X. I think during an iPhone launch, I wanted to count how many people actually called it the X versus the 10. That may have been a thing with a running tally. But, I mean, it just is what it is. That's not the demographic. The demographic for that phone, or for these phones, isn't. For some, it is for reliability and for continuity between devices. But overall, this device isn't marketed for somebody that gives 1 cent of care about whether it's called the 10. They want the new iPhone, and they're going to get it every year because they're going to upgrade annually. Rant over. Go ahead. Show the pictures, Brian.
Okay, so supposedly on the top is the 5.8-inch sequel, which looks like an iPhone 10 currently. And then on the bottom is the larger 6.5-inch sequel. And then they have the Series 4 watch. So, it looks a little bit thinner than where they currently stand, and potentially a larger screen based on what I'm looking at there. The only thing that is kind of throwing me off is, they tend to title their events with, almost as a teaser. So like the gather round thing, it put the seed in my head that they're going to have a round watch.
Well, that's not a thing, but I thought it was just based on the auditorium that it's round.
Which is also a possibility. But I was like, maybe they're going to surprise us and have a round watch, but who knows?
First time in that auditorium, so it would be a weird, hey, grand opening ish.
I thought the first one was kind of hastened to use that because it wasn't ready for the last keynote. So I thought that maybe this would be like their, okay, it's actually ready sort of conversation, but for the first time they could actually use marketing to promote the fact that it's going to be there. I don't see how anything's going to be round at this point.
That's why their leaks have not been so plentiful, is because now they're doing their events in-house and they don't need to send out materials and get things prepared like that. If that's why it is so, it's been so hush, because now the event, everything is in-house and they don't need, there's like not people calling places to reserve things. And then
that's a good point.
Like it seems like if there was going to be a reason why there hasn't been the floodgates of Apple stuff leaking, it's because now it's all on that campus. Like nothing leaves that campus. And that might be an indication of, just what other companies have to do. They can't book a venue, because as soon as Apple books a venue, somebody's going to get on the phone and say, hey, Apple, got this place for September 12th. And then that's
their mom and their uncle and their aunt and their cousin.
They're going to release the new IXS.
Excessively expensive. But I mean, so September 12th, obviously, because then they usually go on Tuesdays, but Tuesday is September 11th, so they kind of want to stay away from that, which makes sense. So
for pre-orders to happen 3 days or 2 days later for that Friday, and then the Friday following will be the release.
And stores will have 3 of each, and there we go. I mean, we saw the watch, we saw the phones. We didn't see what supposedly will be considered the 9, which is the LCD model, which is going to be their budget option at whatever god awful high budget price it's going to be. But everything
Apple considers to be budget.
It doesn't matter. Everything's expensive. Like Eddie said it last episode, like all of it's expensive. It just is what it is. Like this is the price to pay or price to play at this point. Like, I mean, for an S9, where are you at? You're in above 700 or 670 or 680 or whatever it was. I think I looked at their website recently. I mean, your payments aren't below $30, $27 to $30 on these phones, because that's how everybody's purchasing these on device payment of some sort. But the pay to play cost at this point is what it is. I think we all have smartphones and have to have smartphones at this point. I can't find anything without maps, so I'm kind of stuck. But I mean, pay to play, we're in. This is the world we live in with tech. It's just pricey, especially for anything that will last more than 1 year and won't totally crash. Although I'll give Samsung credit, their Samsung Experience software over Android is a lot better than it has been in years, which is the same conversation we're talking about with their watches and all their software. It's just getting better as we go.
I think the interesting thing about smartphone pricing in general is that it has in general gone up, whereas supply and demand would typically dictate that it would go down. Technology gets cheaper over time. I mean, and we always talk about, think about the price of VCRs when they came out, and Blu-ray players, and literally any piece of technology, and how the price over time plummets. But smartphones have been the exact opposite. They started to trend down, and then they held steady, and then now they're on the way up. And it's interesting because people will still buy them no matter what that price is.
They did, not to cut you off, but they made it a little bit easier with device payment. The price shock isn't quite as bad when you're making payments on it monthly. Right. And I don't know that the pricing got this crazy until device payment came up, because we were dealing with device. Well, I guess they were pricey. We were just looking at tier subsidized pricing instead of retail price. The retail price was never really being seen. But the tough part is, I think that they're bringing up the cost of manufacturing, the cost of materials, cost of the new processors that Eddie's talking about, and the cost of these displays, because we know that their displays are the best displays. Basically, most people would agree. So to make these quad HD displays and make these displays that are vibrant, the camera modules, the way they're dual aperture and the mechanisms that go into that, I can't imagine are cheap. When they're actually the aperture is actually opening and closing, like I can't imagine that something like that's going to be cheap to add to make sure that doesn't fail too. Like
I think the other part that you have in there too is, I think people are more willing to buy something like a smartphone that they're going to use, I don't know, 30 times an hour, as opposed to something like a laptop or a tablet. My laptop gets used 3 times a week. One of them is for this. So, but I use my smartphone. What Google will tell me how often I open my smartphone a day.
Don't do it as
6 times.
Pressing, don't do it.
Right, exactly. So, but people are more willing to pay for something that they're going to be using all the time.
That's what they're staring at, like how much of their day. I mean, the phone will tell you, but I mean, what's in our hands most of the day for whatever use? I mean, a lot in my line of work, we're listening to podcasts during the day or music or whatever. So that's all coming from my phone. I mean, GPS, I know people talk about YouTube channels and stuff like that. People can run a YouTube channel with a smartphone at this point, editing software, a camera that's better than some entry-level camera, shooting 4K, shooting slow motion. There's so much in these things that it's like, how many devices can this one device eliminate you from having to buy, and then just use this for those things? It's a one-stop shop for a lot of those things. Eddie's wants to talk here.
I'm going to say that it's going to be, carrier driven, as far as the pricing goes, because really, how many phones come out that don't have a buy one get one deal, or $300 off? Like there's all these deals where the retail price is automatically driven down day one by hundreds of dollars, just
the
based
Note 9 is buy one get one free, and that's $1,000.
They're playing with bill money. They're not actually giving you that for free. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
so they're discounting what they can discount. Granted, that's money they could be taking in regardless as revenue. I understand that, but they're not literally taking the money off of that device. Now, when you're dealing with Best Buy or whatever, sometimes those are different. Sometimes they do different sort of things. But it is a good point. I mean, day one. I mean, in the last 3 years of Samsung devices, even Apple devices, I think too. Day one, the trade-in promotion is something crazy for 2 years. Usually, if it's annual, you're trading in your old phone to pay off the other part of whatever you owe. But if it's 2 years ago, you're getting a couple $100 worth of incentive to get a new device. So I think you're right, Eddie, and the fact that they're going to make it easier, that just makes me think about what the actual margins of these devices are, that they can instantly just like take the $100 off.
They're going to be super high based on, this is, I said, there's tons of communication. So, the carrier stores say, hey, this is what we want to do to drive more people to come to us. And then the manufacturer says, okay, so here's our cost. This is our cost to you. And they say, all right, well, I'll tell you what, we can afford to give, 2 of these away, and you guys are still going to make money. We're going to make money. Like they've got a formula that's built into there. Because a singular phone itself definitely will not consistently, because you look at phones and technology, they don't drop much over time. Like I sickeningly still see Galaxy S5s on sale for like $400, which is just like insane. Like someone that is like showing me their new phone, they're like, I got a new phone and I need help with it, because anytime I go anywhere, that's like the first thing that happens. Like it's just like, hey, I have questions on my phone. I bought a new one. I bought the new Samsung. Here I'm thinking it's a Note 9, S9. At worst case scenario, maybe an S8. It's an S5. It was purchased from my Costco for like $400. And how many years? That was 4 years ago. And that phone
that was
came
one of the roughest in a while too. Sorry.
That phone new in at the mid 600s. So in 4 years time, it took a $250 or $300 drop as far as, I mean, there's nothing else really like that from a technology standpoint. You look at everything else, televisions, and you just, as time goes on, you think 4 years ago, a television that was a 4K television 4 years ago was 500% more money than it is today. But from a cell phone perspective, it just continuously stays high, and there's a reason for that. Like, there's just no, that technology, that processor's not even made anymore. Like, that's it's just unreal. Like, I couldn't give somebody who knows anything about phones a Galaxy S5.
I'd throw it back at you. That Band-Aid back, like, that was epic. It's just,
I would seal that bottom port, provided the flap was still there, and put it in a glass of water. See what happens, and then try to dig out a USB 3 charger. That's
that they did that for 1 year. It was a hot mess.
That charger was awesome.
No, nothing about it. It was awesome. Just, I mean, I get it. It is what it is. It's a money making scenario. It's a business. I mean, you can charge what they're willing to pay, and at this point, it's whatever they charge is what we're willing to pay. It just is what it is. I think smartphones are too big of a part of our lives at this point. They encompass too many different aspects as far as what we're trying to do day to day, or what we can do now day to day because of it. Whether it be social media or the GPS aspect, or a lot of people love taking pictures. I mean, selfies are a thing. So I mean, it's too big of a part of the culture at this point. Yeah. To not be able to just price it at whatever, especially when it's you're at the top of the food chain when you're Apple or you're Samsung and you're at the top of the food chain. You can kind of just not predict, but just say this is what it's going to be to pay to play, and most of the time you're going to get it, and then make the margins based on whatever. Like Eddie said, you can take a hit on a trade and trading program of some sort, whether it be legitimately off the phone, which doesn't happen, or off of whatever cell phone plan, and it'd be a decent deal for the consumer, and then still make money on the margins. So
unless somebody tries to trade in a Pixel 3 XL, I can see somebody shuffling over to me saying, I want to trade this in. Oh, would you like to take a picture of it first?
Why does it have Czechoslovakian writing on it? I don't understand.
That's Cyrillic.
just nuts. Like the overall, like, not to get back on that, but the overall fact of like the black market coming into it, like, just blows my mind. Like, this is a phone. Like, why does the black market have to be involved? Like, so
you can go to because I know so much about the black market, I'm assuming you can go to some sort of website where you'll be able to see, cocaine, RPGs, Pixel 3 XL, some other automatic weapon. That's how it works, right? It's like Amazon. Sure.
Yeah, it's 100% like Craigslist or eBay. It's fine, and it's, I didn't know why we had to be able to get a Pixel 3 XL in the wild. The black market had to come into effect. Like, that's how much it took to actually see it before. And at
for our next episode, Mark, we're going to send you onto the black market. You need to, 1, tell us what it's like, and 2, find a Pixel 3 XL. And
human trafficking is not a cool advocated thing on this channel.
We're not advocating human trafficking. I just want you to buy some RPGs with a Pixel 3 XL.
Yeah. Also, I'm not getting a call from the government on that either.
If you buy this RPG, you get a Pixel 3 XL.
and a Google Home Mini.
Straight down the tubes this show went. Anyways.
You're welcome.
So because I thought this was kind of cool, I read an article, switching to gaming a little bit. I read an article a week and a half ago, I think, about Microsoft and some different options for purchase options. And then Brian brought it back up to us probably about a week ago, and wanted to talk a little bit about it because I thought it was kind of cool. And we have some of the pricing for how it works. So it's a purchase option for the Xbox S and the One S and the One X with bundles, from what I understand, and then some subscription type stuff. So you're gonna want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's similar to what we see a lot in the mobile industry, where you pay for your service, your Xbox Live subscription, and the All Access subscription, as well as your equipment in a monthly cost. So right now, the pricing that they've released is Xbox One S, which gives you the console, supports 4K video, for $21.99 a month, or you can do for $34.99 a month the Xbox One X. They both include 2 years of Xbox Live Gold, and they both include 2 years of Xbox Game Pass, which is, what does it say here? Selection of first and third party titles to play for free. So think Netflix for Xbox games. So that's pretty interesting from the gaming perspective. The cost, and Mark, you ran these numbers, right?
Yeah, I think I got them from an article. The article I ended up reading, but
right. So let's take a look at that here real quick. So right now you can buy an Xbox One S for $300. 2 years of Xbox Live Gold is $120, and Game Pass is $9.99 a month. So the total cost of ownership is about $588. The same bundle under Microsoft's All Access program will cost $527.76. So it saves you about $60 over the course of 2 years, which is not a bad deal. So I guess the ultimate question is, for the One X, the numbers on that total $860 over 2 years, and All Access gives you that same value for $840. So it's about $20 savings. And the console's yours in the end. I mean, you're going to have it anyway. So that really raises the question of, one, why do we think we're doing this? You know, like, why is Microsoft suddenly like, let's make everybody pay for it monthly? And two, who's going to buy it?
I'll give the end of mine because Eddie hasn't talked on this yet. But I don't see why, if you're going to buy this anyways, if you're going to end up with one or both of the subscriptions, then you're going to want one of the two consoles, why you wouldn't purchase them this way, unless you just have an exorbitant amount of money and don't care to save $20 or $60. Or if you're not getting either of the subscriptions, why wouldn't you purchase it this way? Minus the fact that I think you actually have to go to a Microsoft store to do this and travel to wherever a Microsoft store may be in relevance to your location. I don't see why you wouldn't as a regular consumer. Confirm or deny, Eddie?
I don't see why you wouldn't. So the console is yours after 2 years?
Correct.
And yes. What happens? Are you able to, I mean, does some type of payment continue as far as like Xbox Live or Gold or is that?
I think that's just those whatever pricing divided by 24, Brian, if that was it for those, or whatever special promo they were discounting at. So you may end up purchasing those at regular price after the 2 years.
Yeah, that's my assumption here, because I don't know that there's a lot of details on like what the post ownership experience would look like. One of the questions, I was talking about this with one of my friends who brought this to my attention, and what we were discussing is, do we think this is going to lead to a quicker upgrade cycle with console gaming? Mark, you and I both have PlayStation 4s, right? Eddie, you have everything. So
all the things.
So the PS4, when did that come out? 2000.
I bought it late in the game.
2013, I want to say.
Because the Pro is the latest at this point.
The Pro is the latest, but let's just consider that for all intents and purposes a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
There's not. It has more teraflops.
Just
a legitimate term. It has more teraflops. Mm-hmm. That's it. So, I mean, you're looking at already, rumors of PlayStation 5 or next year at the earliest, 2020 at the latest. So that's a 6 to 7 year cycle. So do we think that consoles are going to start upgrading their hardware in a 2-year cycle, like that seems intense because there's not a lot of changes on that front that regularly.
I would say that makes sense. I mean, you think about, so the Xbox One and then the Xbox One S and then the One X. The X isn't a gigantic step up, but it does make a pretty big difference as far as the power. It's just that games are now being designed like PC games where you have a control where you can say, I want higher frame rate, I want better graphics, and then if I have a lesser console, then I play it the way it was intended. But you've got developers developing games like they would for a PC, where there's just you have the option to really push it further on high-end gaming machines. But at this point, their high-end gaming machines are few and far between. Not many people go and drop $3,000-$4,000 on the best of the best. And on a yearly basis, there's a new graphics card, and NVIDIA has been pushing pretty hard. This latest crop of the 2080s are significant in terms of what they can do. It's just that they're cost prohibitive for average people to, throw a bunch of these like $1,500 graphics cards into a machine. So then you come up with the subscription service, and then you do just like cell phones, where you're able to increase the price of your console from $400, $500, where people were like, that's a little expensive, to $1,000 for a console, but then charge, $30 a month for it, $40 a month for it. And then you're bundling the value of those services in there, Xbox Live, the Game Pass, and you see that value. And those services, they have maintenance costs, sure, but Xbox, I pay $59 a year for Xbox Live Gold. So there's a ton of room there for them to put more money toward the hardware. And in turn, the developers they'll say, listen, we've got this many more people buying the new console, because they're not buying it, they're just upgrading from their, trade your old console in and get it for, $30 a month or $40 a month. And then do that. And all of a sudden you can say to your developers, look, this is the kind of user base we have. So this is, you start getting, different console exclusives. You start getting, that's pretty aggressive. I wouldn't be surprised if, Sony followed suit with something very similar.
Well, I was looking at it from the perspective of, Microsoft not necessarily peeling away Sony users, but, people tend to be pretty well stuck in in their ecosystems. And when we've talked about these phones, and it's pretty similar when it comes to gaming. You have people that are like,
that's a flight.
Play PC, I'll only play PS4, I'll only play Xbox. And, that's why you see developers make their games for everything. That's going to be PC, PS4, and Xbox, unless it happens to be an exclusive. So I think it's kind of a good move to kind of get people that have pretty heavily invested into Sony. It's a good entry-level way to get in to start using Microsoft systems. And it's low risk. You're not shelling out the $600, up front to get the system, do a subscription, do another subscription, and buy some, you know what I mean? So you're already kind of, I think that's a low risk way to pull someone like myself, who's used PlayStation exclusively since 2006, into Xbox and that ecosystem. But I think where you're going to start seeing some challenges is cross-platform gaming is starting to become a thing,
I don't know that it's ever a bad thing to make it available to more people. And I think that's partially what this does. I mean, it's I get the upgrade cycle conversation, and that makes a ton of sense too. It's like trade it in now and get whatever on the next one. I get that. But if there's people that couldn't afford the lump sum up front, $300 isn't super crazy, but $500 for a bundle of a system that's getting to the point where it's like that's the only thing a kid's going to get for any holiday all year. So it's like for a lot of people it's tough. I guess that kid's probably not trying to get the $500 bundle with the X, but maybe the S. But
That's why people like Need for Speed so much. It was the only game that came in bundles with consoles.
That's right. So that's the only game you could afford to have for a minute after you bought the whole thing. But to make it available to more people is never a bad thing. I don't think at any point. So whether or not they got it, they're making their hay in it in subscription money, because I know there's people that buy these consoles and don't subscribe to either. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, most people download their games at this point, but I don't know how many people actually purchase hard CDs at this point. But
I know one.
Yeah,
one person that does that.
My Horizon copy is not. Actually, it is. I think it is a hard copy. I just like the cover art. But if it's available,
I have the hard copy, which was a gift from that one person that only buys discs.
There you go. if this purely, if it makes them money, whatever, they're making money regardless. If this makes these available to more people, whether it be kids, whether it be whoever, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think at this point, we kind of decided as a group that there's nothing really why you wouldn't do this if you were going to look at those subscriptions anyways. I think it's maybe more just a way to get people onto those subscription stuff, to get them onto those platforms. Because once you play online with whatever game it is that you enjoy, you don't ever want to play otherwise. Like, whether it be, we talk about the 9-year-old kids wanting to say crazy things about your mother online. Like, that's just part of the fun at this point. It's just part of the environment. But Fortnite's taken it to another level of playing online, interacting. Granted, it's not go outside and play interacting like we probably should be advocating at this point. But it's getting more people involved with the console overall, but also getting more people involved with these subscription-based services that are getting them to enjoy their consoles in different ways. So they may have had a Xbox before, upgrade with this program, be able to get those subscription-based services, and now our Team Xbox for the next 10 years or 12 years, like you're talking about with your PlayStation. So,
right. And lower entry too. So you figure, like, all three of us were in middle school, and Mark, you have a PlayStation, and we have an Xbox, and we're playing a game, and we're like, oh yeah, we're playing, the new Halo. And then you go home and you say, hey Mom, I need a new Xbox to play with my friends Brian and Eddie. It's only $300, as opposed to it's going to be, $30 a month. That's, the lowers the barrier of entry as far as what you're getting. And then all of a sudden you start getting more people who, when you want to play a game, a lot of times it's, you buy the game based on what platform your friends are playing on. Mm-hmm. So I know lots of people that have Xboxes and lots of people that have PlayStations, and then it's time to buy the new Call of Duty. I'm looking to say, well, which version are you guys buying? And then once I figure out, because it would be crazy for me to buy a PlayStation and sit by myself in a lobby while you guys are like going crazy. So it's genius as far as being able to, you're lowering the barrier of entry cost wise, and then it makes it easier for someone to say, yeah, I'm playing on Xbox, and so the Xbox is really cheap and easy for me to get. Why don't I do that? And then all of a sudden, there's more copies of a specific game sold on Xbox just based on the fact that that's where all the players are, that all your friends are playing.
I mean, that's once you get into, and that was me, was when I got this situation, was once you get into Xbox Live and play online, especially with your friends, with people that you know and want to interact with, that's a little bit on the addicting side. They realize that once you're in that ecosystem, you're in it, and I don't think you're going to want to be outside of it. It significantly enhances the experience of the console, in my opinion. I guess the question is, for Brian, being more of a PlayStation person, how does this affect your opinion as far as what you would like to own? Because to this point, I would say your preference was PlayStation for the last 12 years. Does this affect maybe an inkling of a thought to say, okay, this is the second, maybe I'll have this and what I already have, or maybe this is the direction I'm going to go because of the value?
I think, like we've been saying, is, or at least we've come to the conclusion through our discussion here. Yeah, it's a great, for me, if I was like, oh, cool. Well, I know Eddie has an Xbox, and now Mark's maybe thinking about getting one, and there's this cool exclusive coming out that's only for Xbox. That's a great way to get into it. Yeah, I would definitely buy one.
And he's sold.
And I'm sold. $35 a month. Going somewhere else.
Eddie has these. Brian said it. You have all of the things. When you go to purchase the next one, would this be something you would look at instead of purchasing however you usually purchase?
I would say yeah.
Way, which would be retail.
Yeah, I would say yeah, especially if I add up the services over the cost of time, and then I add up the cost of the device itself. Because rarely do I just go in and plunk down cash. Usually put on a credit card. I'll pay it in a month or two, and then you got to add the interest in. Like there's going to be a total cost at the end. If that number is equal to or less than for me to get a subscription, I would have to scour the terms and services to find something weird as far as like why there would have to be some weird clause that would cause me not to do that. Like, it's if somebody would, if you say that one bad thing ever about Xbox, somebody kicks in your door and takes the Xbox away and say, well, it's not really yours. And then, you know what I mean? Like that.
Bill Gates comes to your house.
That's really weird. The stuff you said on YouTube about Xbox. Be ashamed if someone were to come and take yours, and then, or it's like, oh, I'm sorry to take mine because you don't own it yet. Like that would be the only way. I can't see unless there's a clause in there somehow where it's. I mean, well, really, it's not really yours even when you buy it on a credit card. It belongs to Visa or Barclay or whoever you like. I don't know. I can't see a good reason why you wouldn't do this. There would have to be some really weird term of service in there.
I think the only thing I saw was if you don't want to pay for it anymore, you have to pay the rest of the retail off. Like that was the only thing I saw, which I think is, I don't want to say it's kind of inferred, but it's the same as any other payment. I mean, if you don't want to pay for it anymore, you have to pay the balance off. Like that's just how that works.
Want to quit Xbox Live, then I'd have to finish off my payments for the Xbox. Well, that's super reasonable. It'd be crazy to imagine anything else. So like the way that it sounds now, I would say it's the ultimate deal. Which is why I could see Sony following suit, because they're, you can't beat them, join them kind of thing, where people are going to have both. And then it's going to not be a question of, who's going to buy which console, because you have both. It's going to be whose eyes can I get on my console more. Like it's going to be battling for attention. So you'll see a lot more like social based stuff. You'll be a lot more there's got to be a reason behind it somewhere. Like there's got to be ads. There's something in there to justify that.
Well, we know whenever there's competition that the consumer wins. So if this happens and then Sony goes that route, I think we all win in that aspect, because like Eddie said, I have a hard time believing that Microsoft is going to do this and then Sony's not going to follow suit in some form or fashion. In kind of try to just be competitive in that aspect, because the more I thought about it, I'm on PlayStation 1 because it was peer pressure initially, but Horizon Zero Dawn is a Sony exclusive, so that's kind of a thing with me. We're not going to start that conversation. We'll talk about it sooner or later, I'm sure.
It'll come up at some point when there's a really slow week.
I believe that it will, like 2 weeks from now or a month from now, talking about, Xbox and Sony now doing the same thing, and Nintendo's going to march to the beat of their own drum. They're going to say, they can pretend like nothing's happening. Be like, yeah, whatever. Here's a new Switch.
Yeah, but no, you can't even, like, it doesn't even matter, because the Switches you couldn't buy for forever because they were too insane, and like anybody that loves that stinking thing. So it's like, no, it is. And I think Brian talked about the fact that it's almost his preference over console at this point.
That's awesome. Here's a new Switch.
Pokemon.
Let's go Pikachu.
Christ,
that's what I'm waiting for.
I quit. So I guess to sew that up, I mean, overall, my preference because of Horizon was PlayStation. Brian, I would imagine, has been Team Sony for a hot minute. Is there a loyalty with you, Eddie, in what you prefer? Is it a game related thing?
Game and I can't enjoy.
So what's drove you one direction or another? What direction do you prefer?
I can't the exclusives that each console have, I appreciate. So I can't possibly pick between them because the games are all that I care about. And realistically, we're getting to the point where the console power is almost the same. Like you got a slightly different controller, both are comfortable. It's just the games themselves are what I care about. And Sony has some really great stuff that I just have to play, but Microsoft has some great stuff I have to play. Nintendo has great stuff I have to play. Like you can't, if you love games, it is difficult in this day and age to pick between consoles, because if you truly just love to play games, each console has like their killer app that is just something that everybody can enjoy, something that you really want to get into, and it's like built, it's made with love for the people. Like you can see a lot of these, like God of War is just an excellent game. The Mario, the Zelda is incredible on the Nintendo console. Halo is great with Microsoft. Like you don't have, I couldn't possibly pick. It's just that I love games so much that I have to love them all because they let me play what I like to play.
I have to love them all. I should have made that the description of this stinking episode. I guess I can leave that up to you too, Brian. I mean,
second title,
something that drove you to Sony at some point. Mine was all peer pressure and Horizon. So that's the only game that I actually played. I played NHL Live for a minute, and I was terrible. And you can ask our old coworkers from my prior life how bad I was at it. But the interaction between all of us and then random people, golden. Like loved all that stuff.
I think I ended up getting a PS3 because my brother-in-law bought a new one. So I bought his old one, and that was out. I mean, I had a Nintendo Wii before that. So that was like the first real console I had, what was that, 12 years ago at this point? And then I've just stuck with it ever since then. I mean, as soon as the the PS4 came out, I had one of those within 6 months or a year, it's pretty much once my PS3 was getting ready to kick the bucket. I just kept within the same ecosystem because that's what everybody that I played online with, that's what we had, PlayStations. The quality was always great. The controllers, I personally think the PS4 controller is more comfortable than the Xbox One.
Don't set Eddie off. He's going to go off. That is untrue.
I like that.
So, I mean, that's just why I stuck with them. And then, you have exclusives like Horizon Zero Dawn, and then Horizon Zero Dawn 2 in 2019. That's my hope. So that's why I've kept it with it for so long. I think I had a 360 for a hot second that I sold within 3 months.
I traded mine in for $12. $12. I remember I told Eddie that whenever it happened, and he was like, "Why did you do that?" I was like, "I could have went Office Space in it for a lot more, in a field somewhere, for a lot more emotional release than $12."
Oh man.
But sorry, I just ruined your story. But
I mean, it was a very emotional tale about how much I love PlayStation. So
yeah, I just was curious. Yeah, I was curious to see. I like this program. I think like I said, if it's making it more available to more people, there's zero things that can be wrong with that. Especially if it's equal or lesser value, like Eddie said, there's zero reason to not be looking at it. If you were in the market already, it may actually bring more people to the table, and that's just more people to talk smack on you online about.
Once you get used to shelling out that, what was it, $22 or $35 a month? Like, I think about like my Audible subscription. That's $15 a month. That, thankfully I'm in a position where I don't notice that $15 a month is gone. But that's once you get used to paying it, you'll continue paying it. And if consoles start switching their new console release cycle to every 2 years instead of every 5 or 7, you're just going to keep paying that same amount every month and just not even bat an eye at it. Same as cell phones, you know, every 2 years, $32 a month. So
that's everything. Like, and you don't, it's proven to work because you always, like, you very rarely do you cancel that stuff. Like, you don't really cancel Netflix. I canceled my first one ever last week. Like, my first, I have subscriptions I've been paying for years and I still pay them. I canceled my very first one like a week ago and it was just like weird to me. So I was like, I can't believe I canceled this. I don't know what to do.
I almost want to ask, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to be like that.
Movie Pass. I dumped Movie Pass last week.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I had a Star subscription through the mobile app for last summer to watch American Gods, and then I kept it for like 8 months, and then I had the same situation, and I was like, I need to cancel this.
HBO.
Do I want to cancel it?
Whichever HBO mobile, whatever is it Go? HBO Go is the mobile version. I had that for Game of Thrones, and then I kept it for like 6 months after Game of Thrones was over. I'm like, why do I have this? $15.
It's not coming back till next year.
It is, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I just can't. It's one of
Westworld.
They actually created an app. There's multiple apps, I think, at this point. They will search your accounts to see what subscription-based services you have to ask if you actually want to keep them or not, because that stuff gets lost. Like, I mean, we were talking about learning how to write checks and stuff in like elementary school and teaching you how to do real life things in school. Like, getting these subscriptions is real life stuff right now that I've been paying for almost a year and didn't use because freaking Game of Thrones isn't around and my life's not complete and I have to have this just floating around. So, I mean, this is one of those things. It's just, I just think that to wrap this up, the Microsoft deal, I think, minus having to go to a store to do it, is a no-brainer if you're looking at it at all, or if you wanted a reason to get involved or to enter that genre of console. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a good position for the consumer because we're going to see competition, like Eddie said, from Sony, and it's good in general because it's going to bring more people the ability to acquire these things. That was the majority of the list. I wanted to give, because I want to give Eddie a second for his weekly or episodic Tesla Minute.
I need a sound effect.
Yeah. Whoosh is the sound his accelerator makes. But because I know that you dropped a video within the last couple of days that I watched and liked. I have yet to be the first person to like one of your videos, which is hurting my heart immensely. You can talk about that if you want to plug yourself, like I try to let you do every 2 weeks. Just let us know about what's going on, maybe.
So the last or close to last update before the big one that's supposed to come this month for the Tesla fleet ads is a security-based one. It's partially software and partially hardware. So the software version of it is there's a couple very smart people around in Europe that were able to hang out near vehicles, not just Tesla, but everything, didn't matter what it was, anything that had a key fob. And they were able to mimic that signal, clone it, and then go to the vehicle with a computer, clone the signal, pops the door open, and then they hop in and they drive away. So that was, that's not a uncommon thing to happen. So this update adds a new security feature called Pin to Drive, which is like the lock screen on your phone. So when you get in the vehicle and sit down to drive, before it allows you to put it into drive, there's a pin pad that pops up, and then you have to type in an additional security key in order to start your vehicle. So that will, to presumably reduce the ability for it to be stolen based on a clone signal. And then they're now changing the key fobs also. So whenever, and this is still up in the air, and I haven't confirmed it for myself, like I have the Pin to Drive, that when you go to the service center, they'll swap your keys out for you with this new key is unable to be cloned, so that you can't even get into the vehicle. But from a software perspective, because they figured not everybody's going to go running out to swap out their key fobs, the Pin to Drive is just locks your car out, and no one can get in it and move it unless you have the pin. I don't know how many tries you get because I was afraid to lock myself out and not be able to get any service over the holiday weekend, so I didn't attempt it. It definitely works. And then I see that there's a backup method, which is your account. You type in your email and your password, and then you can go on the mobile app and do it as well. But that's a pretty big deal as far as from a security perspective. It's preventing the bad guys from getting in there, and one less thing to have to worry about getting your car stolen. So,
and that's you. And you did a video on this already. Where can we find that?
That's on my YouTube channel. Just search my name, Eddie Daniels, after the clarinet player. Still, one of these days, so I'll be the guy right above the clarinet player, Eddie Daniels.
Someday,
someday,
dreams, right?
Someday in the near future. But that's up currently, along with some of the other stuff that I'm working on. Is just a lot of stuff autopilot wise is changing. So in preparation of that, that's been an exciting subject. And then I've got some security stuff coming up, and that's going to be for everybody, not just, it's not related to automotive security, but it's just, securing your digital life anymore with the crazies that are out there. So I've got some cool stuff coming in the mail that I haven't received yet. And once I do, I'll get to work on that.
That's cool. That's very cool. I figured I watched the videos. I knew you had new stuff up. I watched the video, saw all that stuff. I figured that for every other of the 3 people that have Teslas that would be watching this, that Eddie's given his registration code to get it. They would enjoy having a dedicated kind of step-by-step of everything that's new that's coming out that he's looking at and already giving like a real-world use of, excuse me, all of the things that are happening. I could have muted myself. I'm sorry. But check Eddie out, Eddie Daniels, not the clarinet player, just so we can kind of get his stuff out there. It's really informative stuff that even if you don't, like, he does all the Google stuff, a lot of the phone stuff, Tesla stuff, obviously. So everything's informative. Everything's easy to understand, and just overall good content. So that was, as usual, a Tesla Minute. That ends our episode. Eddie, do you have anything to add at this point?
Nope. I think that was a pretty good overview of everything. I will have those Titan keys this week. It should arrive Tuesday, so I'll be able to give a good impression on how that works, and that'll be part of that securing your digital life section also. So.
Okay, so if you're interested or haven't seen any of that, if you Google Titan keys or Google Titan keys, get an idea of what that is like, then you'll have an overview of how those are going to secure your digital life from this guy, from Eddie Daniels. Brian, anything in closing besides the tears from the Pixel Watch?
No, I just hope that everybody has had or continues to have a great Labor Day weekend. I know I'm going to be gaming all day tomorrow. So
fair enough. Then that is true. I hope that everybody has a good Labor Day weekend, keeps it safe, and just has a good time overall. And we'll hopefully have some more stuff going on come the 2 weeks from now with our episode 5. But other than that, for Eddie and Brian, I appreciate anybody that's watching it now or will watch it later on. And for Tech 4-3, I appreciate it and have a great night.